Detective Comics 1036, Mariko Tamaki writing with Dan Mora on the art. And obviously I had the big cliffhanger last. I'm going to give Detective credit here, because sometimes it takes me a couple of pages to remember what happened in the last issue, because, month between issues, it's just the way I am with comic books.
Yeah.
But credit where credit's due, I remembered quite vividly how the last one ended, because it was so kind of like, whoa, out of nowhere, the dead woman seems to be back, to life. And I think I actually liked the sort of the double swerve back on the start of this issue when it turned out to be a clay person, Lady Clayface specifically, as we go on throughout the issue. But I kind of like that swerve. So no, we're not dealing with people coming back to life. She is dead. She is still genuinely dead. But
yeah,
I think I kind of like that swerve. So, and plus Huntress comes into the main story as well.
I like this, and the fact that Tamaki is telling the Huntress story, and then it leads to her showing up here, and then we get more background on the story in the backup. I do like how that weaves together.
That's nice. It's nice, especially since because in the backup you were thinking, oh, it's just this asshole, boyfriend who's murdered his girlfriend, but it turns out not to be the case, which I almost like, because if I had any complaints about the backup last time, which was very good otherwise, is that maybe it was a bit on the nose that he immediately killed her like right after the setup. It was maybe a bit quick in that sense. So it turned out not to actually be the boyfriend, and it's actually tied to the thing going on in Greater Gotham.
Yeah, it's tied to the and she's still, that dude's still a dirtbag.
Oh, he's still awful, yeah.
Yeah, but Huntress has to be like, I can't punish him just for being can't punish him for not murdering her, but just being an all around douche. So I did like that show. Well, we'll get there. So
yeah. So I dig that Lydia, the neighbor, like sort of sees the zombie looking Sarah, and Bruce quickly gets her into the apartment, and she calls the police on him because she thinks that something fishy is going on. But very quickly, as soon as they're in the apartment, like he's got her in his hands, and she starts melting into clay, and it's like, wait, Clayface? No, I've not seen Clayface in ages. Not since the Gotham Knights disbanded.
Yeah.
And so all this was just fun stuff, and Hayden, he assumes it's Lady Clayface right now. It's confirmed later on. But
I love the screaming. He excuses the police that he was watching a horror movie, and he had it turned all the way up. I just always love that stupid, like you hear that in movies all the time. It's like, oh no, there's no screaming. I was just listening to TV real loud. I love that Batman's bold enough to try that. Oh, Bruce. Anyways.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
With how loud I like my movies playing, some of the neighbors might think there's abducted people.
Let me just tell you, my neighbors know how much I hate certain members of the Minnesota Wild. So, yeah. Yeah.
But we have Penguin henchmen out looking around, and this eventually ties into stuff, because they run into who is it they're looking for exactly again? They're looking for someone who's went off book. But this guy jumps out of the alley with a knife. He's very deranged, and we don't really get the context yet, but it's all building to like what's really going on here, which is so Neil's also an asshole, but as we find out throughout this issue, there's something infecting people and making them psychotic. This is not just him. He's not just a serial killer naturally. There's something else going on here. So being a good detective book, and the idea that we keep adding layers to the mystery with each issue is a really nice touch, I think. Huntress does show up on the rooftop with Batman, wants answers. I love that Lady Clayface just sort of like falls off the roof like in clay form, and they have to jump down and like find her again. It's good stuff. Art's really fun here. Mora's going nuts with the.
Mora does monsters. So I read Once in Future. He does monsters so well, but then you also see how well he does just regular people, and it's like that's a balance that as a comic artist, it's good to have.
I think my favorite part of it is after they sort of fight Lady Clayface a little bit, and it's raining as well. She kind of forms a more human-looking figure, and I think it's actually still Sarah again, but she looks up at them, and there's kind of this sadness, and she's been kind of messed up because she was in Arkham when the A-Day attack happened, and the gas has done something to her physically, but she can't quite control herself anymore. And but obviously the question is why is she appearing as Sarah, this murder victim? And Batman immediately assumes, I think she saw something, and she's not been able to turn into anything else since then because of the trauma of what she saw. So when that panel when she's looking up at them in the rain, I think is really effective. Is just you get this idea of like she's witnessed something really awful.
It's that part in like in a detective or a hard-boiled cop thing where they find the one witness, but the witness is super violent because whatever they saw has broken their brain. So they just start attacking. When they finally get them calmed down, they're like a huddled animal in the corner, and they're just that's what this is. Like the way that Batman's looking down at Lady Clayface, she's a wounded animal almost. And then she tells him that she just heard, whatever she saw, she kept, someone said Neil, but she says it like, not like the name, but like the action,
Yeah.
So.
He makes going Matt. What I liked about that is obviously you can't really tell the difference when someone says Neil the name versus Neil as in the to Neil.
Right.
But by having it spelt like that when she says it and then having Huntress think that's what she meant, like I loved it. As soon as she said Neil with the K, I was kind of like, oh no, she was saying the name Neil. I like that it let us kind of like get the mistake.
Well, and that's a thing that you can do in movies, but you have to do different in comics, right?
Yeah.
So, here, because we're having to have the, whatever we're readings in our head versus being projected. They have to play around, but no. No, this is a mission. I have zero idea what's going on. And I like it. But besides the fact it seems like there's some kind of fungus that's making people nuts.
Yeah, they've got stuff in their eyes, basically. So it's kind of like a bizarre, almost like the crazies, or like it's a zombie infection, but not zombies per se. More.
Right. And I like that Tamaki's playing with that because the way that the last issue ended, it looked like it was zombies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she's really playing with these kind of horror tropes in a detective story.
That's true. I never thought about it that way. You're right. She kind of teased traditional zombies at the end of last issue, and it turns out that wasn't a zombie. But now we're dealing with something that's akin to a zombie.
Right. It's the 28 days later, rage virus.
Yeah.
Deal.
And Sarah's father, the crime boss, is still, buying tables at the mayor's office and stuff. I love how big he's drawn. He's so hulking and whatever, but
he's Kingpin.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
The way what I love too is how it's formatted in the beginning. It's the story written by the journalist that lives in their neighborhood,
the one who hates Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. and you read like the backstory that happened at the funeral, that like Nakano spoke and no one kind of was listening, that it all seemed like formalities, but when he talked, everyone had the respect because yes, he's a businessman for construction in Gotham, which has made him very rich because when you think about what happens in Gotham. But he also has ties to the underworld, which makes him scary. And I was like, oh, this is just Kingpin, right? Like,
I think I also like
the flair of Gotham
about that. It's obviously Bendis has just been doing recap pages, but I kind of like that newspaper article actually functioned as a recap page as well.
Yeah,
because it told you the story of like, oh, so and so got murdered. This is when it happened. Their father's a crime boss. Like, it really reminded you of a lot of the key details. And one of the things that we've been saying over the last month. Last 2 months, 3 months even, is how connected and how it feels like they're building a supporting cast in these books, which is something that was missing for so long. And I love that, we have just this one quick scene with the father, just to reestablish and just keep that inner minds, inner thoughts, and keep all these threads ongoing. And then, we go to Penguin, and they've grabbed the guy who was crazy and tried to kill them. And this is, where we get a close-up of the eyes, just, again, so this is building up the reasons why Neil might have done what he did. And then we get to this great transition, actually. So they find Neil on a rooftop, because obviously once Batman figures out it's the name Neil, he doesn't take a long time to put together
find him.
Who lives in the street who's named Neil. And they find him on a rooftop. It's in the rain, just for the atmosphere, the lighting in the background. Neil's hands are covered in blood. His eyes have got all the red squigglies, just like the other guy did. And he lies there and basically dies. in front of them. And they sort of, we should probably keep our distance until we know what's going on. But Batman looks down in the rain and says, he's got blood in his hands, but it's not his. And that leads into the transition of the journalist, going down the street and finding Lydia. To obviously there was a tease earlier on where Neil sort of like walked up to her. So this is a payoff as well. But the transition of Batman saying that's not his blood. Yeah. So then
it also anytime something like that happens, it reminds me of John's Justice League of America with Hawkman, where they go, he's like, you're covered in blood. It's not my blood. Just one of those for humor. This though, him being covered in blood that's not his makes it even more ghastly.
Oh yeah, it's just more ominous. And a little detail here: the first panel of this last page is if you look at the gutter in the street, you can see there's red in it. There's blood flowing down the drains. Really nice touch. So no. And again, it's this. Finally, some of the horrific side of Gotham is invading the wealthy elite neighborhood kind of thing. It's the blood's flowing in the streets, literally. So, yeah, I mean, really strong stuff. The art throughout is really good. It's building the characters. It's building the mystery. Huntress investigating this because of the death of the friend, which takes us into the backup quite nicely. But I guess before we do that, what are you rating the?
I'm giving this 8.5. Just so we talked about like with the horror elements mixed with the detective elements, and then the fact that Moore is able to draw both and keep the action moving. Like, it is living up to its name, Detective Comics. Like each piece is coming up, and it's Tamaki and Moore are working hand in hand.
Yeah, I don't know if they specified why Lady Clayface like sort of was drawn to where she was at the end of last issue.
Well, remember she was escaping Arkham. She was doing time in Arkham, and then the explosion happened.
No, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, not like why she was in the sewers, but I mean, why was she drawn specifically? Like, was she looking for Bruce because she knew that she had information for Batman that would be important? Was she drawn to where Sarah lived because it's the same street?
Yeah.
I don't know if they specified, but either way, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, let's see.
I don't think they maybe clarified that point, or if they did.
No, maybe not. But yeah, we can go. I'm just reskimming this.
Yeah. So I will also give an 8.5. I think it's very, very good stuff. So the backup is just continuing the Huntress story where she is basically convinced it's the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, who killed Mary, and she tracks him down. Talks about how it's easy to find him in social media, how he's using her credit card still, all the rest of it. What she does actually get him, at the end, it tacks on that she's making sure Oracle's like making sure he's arrested for fraud and whatever. But yeah, so she basically scares the shit out of him. But he's got an alibi. He was on a plane. Is the gist of it. So yeah, I mean that's basically the story in the nutshell. Art's not bad, but it does still have that head thing that I don't like.
Yeah,
about
it's a Clayton Henry, although it's toned down here because the angles. I feel like he's the type that when it's drawn straight on, you really notice it. But here from the different angles, it's fine. But I do love that he draws a gun on Huntress, and she's just kind of like, "What are you doing?" Like, I just love that Tamaki has her vibe down because for a long time, like with Huntress, she's kind of like. She doesn't really have she has a character, but it's kind of all over the place, and it's just the different writers having different handles on her. So I like that here, Tamaki has the this version that I prefer of her, that she's no nonsense, like even more no nonsense than Batman, right? Like, and it just makes her stand out from the rest of the Bat family. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I don't have a super amount to say on it. It's fairly straightforward in what it does, but and if anything, maybe it's hurt a little bit because from her involvement in the main story that it's not going to be the boyfriend, that the boyfriend's a dead end. So maybe that hurts it a touch in terms of just like the progression of the story.
So when I started, I was like, okay, well, what did she find that led her to go to Batman? Since we know it's not the boyfriend. That's where I was at with it, So.
Yeah. But I like that she's looking after the cat at the end. That's cute.
Yeah. Of course you are.
This is adorables. Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. I say as there's 3 cats on my bed snoozing. And
I have one. I opened my window because it's kind of nice here today. You know, it's only 90 degrees, but it's nice and cloudy. But I have the window open, and she's sunbathing over here. So
yeah, that sounds about right. What are you giving the backup?
I'm gonna give the backup a 7.5. Like it's decent.
Yeah, it's just a straight 7 for me. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing particularly exciting. I mean, I like this. It exists. I like that it's giving us some more insight into Huntress and whatever. But it feels kind of like just a obligatory next part versus the first part, which was because the first part was all the stuff about her making the friend. There was a lot more of an emotional story there, and because we know the end result from the main story, this one just felt a bit more like okay, it's natural follow up, but there's nothing particularly exciting or super surprising about it.